Hello again. Well, welcome to my musings on life from an older woman's perspective, and I entitled them Forever Young, and this is the second talk, just to keep the record straight. So, here we go. If you remember growing up when your friends would knock and ask you if you could come out to play, an orange was a Christmas stocking treat, and a popular song of the day, Yes, We Have No Bananas, was the height of popular satirical social commentary. This is from me to you. Although it is an opportunity, if you belong to a younger generation of women, to compare your experiences to ours. And if you have a mum or an auntie or other older female relative or friend not here on Facebook or other social media, perhaps they might like a look and or listen if you can show it to them. These chats of mine are going on YouTube too, by the way. Of course, some of these retrospective experiences are yet to come when you look back on your life now from the sometimes dizzy heights of 6, 7 or more decades, like ourselves. I say some because there were things in my time that will not affect you in your future, thankfully. There are bound to be differences, though, as a result of progress, and some of them will be, like the changes that we are able to look back on, so very many years later, unforeseeable. Take all the TV film channels and films listed in general television schedules. We could basically only watch films if we went to the cinema. Few people had televisions, and even then, there weren't many films shown on them. The advent of videotapes and then DVDs are now films we can make ourselves on personal electronic mobile devices like this one, with the stuff of science fiction. I used to like that too. And along with all the other young girls of that era, I didn't get in to see some films before I was 16 because they had an X rating, meaning the censorship authority decided it had unsuitable content for those of us under that age. The British Board of Film Censors, since 1984 renamed the British Board of Film Classification, only relaxed their strict, and some would well argue their extremely prudish viewpoint in 1964. There was a U for universally OK for all ages, A for adults, and some councils allowed children accompanied by one of those to see the film, and X for those aged 16 or older. Anyway, after I turned 16, I had other things to do rather than go to what we called the pictures. So, in my autumnal years, I refused to regard any encroachment of winter until we get past 95. I get to enjoy all those old films they show on TV that I actually never saw at the time of their release. Even some that were made before I was born or when I was a baby. As for those X-rated films, some have become U's and don't even advise parental guidance in this far more permissive era, like Room at the Top, once an X, that is now reclassified as suitable for 12-year-olds. As well as going to bed a bit earlier of a night and having many a dream where I'm young and active, the other strange occurrence that affects my consciousness is that I've realised that while I'm watching those old films, the characters on the screen are still all older than me. Actors like Jean Hagen, and in case the name escapes you, she played Lena Lamont with the Bronx accent opposite Gene Kelly in Singing in the Rain, a drama graduate of Northwestern University. Her own voice was well modulated. Or Katie Johnson, who was the old lady in The Ladykillers and was pivotal in her role alongside Alec Guinness and Peter Sellers, and some films I was too young to get in to see in the cinema, like Yield to the Night, 1956, with the eternally famous Dinah Dawes, although many women in supporting roles often slipped past unnoted and perhaps less well remembered, such as the actor who played the governor of the prison, Marie Ney. And that's not surprising, really, as men got most of the top billing and the good publicity, while women got described by their age, appearance, marital status, basically their sex appeal quotient, and not much about their dramatic abilities. Ironically, Dawes must be credited for the superb performance she gave for the film being nominated for the Cannes Film Festival's prestigious award that literally has her name written onto it, the Palme d'Or. Yield to the Night was about a woman who killed the woman with whom her boyfriend was having an affair and was hung for it. It was widely mooted at the time to be loosely based on Ruth Ellis, who shot her abusive boyfriend and was the last woman to be executed in the UK. Although an obviously anti-capital punishment story, it contained nothing resembling a narrative of the reality of Ruth Ellis's experience. and the violence that she endured throughout her 30 years of life, from October 1926 to July 1955, is still being perpetrated against women and girls to this day. Granted, we don't all pick up a gun and shoot the men who mistreat us, but we have to understand that some women would be literally driven mad and act out of character for the short time it takes to perform that deed. And to pay for their blood and the restoration of the death penalty is to swerve that truth. Did you know that the last figures I can quote you for the number of reported offences against women and girls in England and Wales, including domestic abuse, rape and sexual assault, was 117,568 women and girls in the year 2015 to 2016, and worldwide it runs into millions. Now, a point to ponder: we aren't all going to murder our aggressors and tormentors, but should those who do so also be murdered by the state? The last attempt to get the restoration of the death penalty past the British Parliament was in 2013. Every attempt since its abolition has been rejected by the majority. So back to those lovely old films, and the days when most of us here in the UK were more concerned with our immediate friends and families, work or study depending, and our hobbies. And I admit that at the time those public conscience tweaking films were doing the rounds, I was only really interested in whether I'd be going skating and if my friends would be there too. And while I sit entranced in my home, crammed full of tangible memories that some may call clutter, glassy-eyed for the usual 90-minute running time, even the intermittent breaks for adverts relied on to finance all the wonderful television channels we can choose from, with presentations about life insurance, funeral plans and stair lifts, seem to be directed at other, much, much older people than me. But then I get up, slowly, to get a cup of tea or go to the bathroom, and catch a glimpse of this strange old lady walking past the dressing mirror in the hall. The English language has altered and progressed too over time. When those films were being shown, the Frenchified diminutive was used and applied to ushers in the cinema, so we had usherettes. Did you know that before her acting career took off, Jean Hagen's CV lists her stint as a theatre usherette? And women had a double S tacked onto their job titles. Managers, where there were any, were manageresses, and of course actresses has only just got the chop in forward-thinking circles. Back then we were very unlikely to go into a pub or club on our own either, even if we were old enough legally. And once in the early 1960s, when I was out with a girlfriend in Soho, we walked into a cafe and sat down to order. The waiter came up to our table and told us to leave, as they didn't serve unaccompanied girls, unescorted by a male in other words. I found out later that it was because single women out on their own may have been what were euphemistically referred to as ladies of the night, and how that would have affected other diners had I or my friend been one, I have no idea. A bit like the modern day objectors to two girls or women getting married. I haven't worked out yet how that threatens the marriages of those made between a man and a woman, any more than in those old days, two women dining alone, whichever way they earned the money to pay their own bill, threatened the perceived respectable status of an eating establishment. There are so many practical and material improvements to women's lives that we've enjoyed over just the last 50 years that it seems churlish to complain about anything, but of course we shall. What used to be called labour-saving appliances, like washing machines and vacuum cleaners, cookers that automatically cooked a meal while you read a book, and dishwashers that washed up afterwards, are certainly an answer to washing sheets and blankets in the bath, if you had one, or boiling whites and toweling or linen nappies in a big saucepan on the stove, or the interminable sweeping up and dragging carpets outside to hang over a line to beat the dust out of, either with a stiff carpet broom, or, if you were better off, an ornamental beater designed like a huge fly swat. So what's to moan about then? Now we have been freed from downright domestic drudgery, we can all participate in more cerebral pursuits, once the province of our more leisured sisters in femaledom. It was mostly women from what we call the middle classes, with their domestic servants looking after their kids and housework, who had the energy to concern themselves with conditions in the wider world outside of their immediate family and friends, like the Votes for Women campaigners, prison reformers, and issues around women's health. Well, there are still women and girls who get a raw deal compared to boys and men in many different ways. And the amazing changes we wrought in the heady days of women's liberation, where the word feminist struck fear and, dare I say it, loathing into the hearts and minds of reactionaries and misogynists, appear to be hiding under a new wave of what has been laughingly called post-feminism. A new women's political party has been set up called the Women's Equality Party, and it certainly has a resemblance to the composition of all the women-led groups that went before it. I went along with Cathy to its first meeting in Cambridge. I was the oldest woman there, and it was obvious to me that the issues of concern seemed not to mirror my interests now. But I have joined regardless. But I suppose that us older women who are retired should be altruistic enough to support their demands for equal status in law and equal pay. I recall our banner on 170's demo that was held by the group of women calling for wages for housework. And as for our campaigning group to stop violence against women and against body-revealing advertisements in public places that might cause girls and women embarrassment, we would have hoped that in our old age, if we had thought that far ahead, to have seen all that change. But we mustn't lose heart or sight of achieving real equality between men and women. You may be interested to hear that there is an older feminist network. In London, they meet on the second Saturday of every month, 11:30 to 4:30, at the Community Centre, 50 Milman Street, WC1N 3EW. It was formed in 1982, when I considered myself much too young for it. Info on their website, www.olderfeminist.org.uk. And in case you're one of those for whom marriage to one's same-sex partner is an option, like me and Cathy, and are 40 plus, there is an older lesbian network that meets the third Saturday afternoon of the month at the same place, and their website is www.olderlesbiannetwork.btck.co.uk. That's Bravo Tango Charlie Kilo.co.uk. I've enjoyed sharing some of my thoughts with you, and until next time, TTFN, ta-ta for now, and toodle pip. Well, I'm happy to have been sharing my thoughts with you, and I hope that you've enjoyed listening and being with me at this time. And thank you for listening and sharing with me and making me feel that it was worth writing down, even if it didn't get an airing on this newfangled radio station for which it was first prepared. Well, bye for now. Bye for now. Until next time.